أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبا القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعجل فرجه وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. Assalamu alaykum ya al-Imam al-Hasan ibn Ali. Tonight we're going to remember Imam Hassan alayhi salam. We had two majalis for Rasulullah. Today we'll be talking about the second Imam, the first child of Imam Ali alayhi salam and Lady Fatima. And we'll be talking about, inshallah, lessons that we can learn from him. And we'll end with a hadith that we can implement in our lives. I said this before, I'll say it again. How many people, what are the figures of people that went to Arba'in, Ziyarat Arba'in? Maybe 22 million at least, some figures. It's hard to calculate, but 22 million. And they are walking in the month of Safar, a month that also Imam Hassan alayhi salam is known to have passed away. Some say the 7th of Safar, also some say the 28th. You see, you compare these two different ziyarats, these two different visitations, one 20 million, 22 million. The other brother of Imam Hussein alayhi salam doesn't have any visitors, just not allowed. One has a beautiful shrine, the other is destroyed. We really, right now we're talking, you really have to think about this, that his shrine is destroyed. The other, they say welcome, they welcome you. They give you food, they beg you to clean your feet, give you anything you need. But the other brother, you see that they come and use vulgar language sometimes. They command the good and forbid the evil and say that ziyarah is shirk, that ziyarah is polytheism. So Imam Hassan alayhi salam, whenever you talk about him, especially now, I want you to understand this, that he's really a madloom imam. And we really have a duty to do whatever we can to remember his name, to cry for him, and to make dua and to help somehow that Allah will help us rebuild his shrine. When you want to study someone's life, you look at three relationships that person has. One is the relationship that person has with God, if you want to see how great someone is. Two, how is that relationship that person has with creation? Some people are very good when it comes to worship. When they come home, they are genuinely a pain to deal with. And they really don't have good akhlaq. Or when it comes to their friends, they're not loyal, for example. Or when it comes to relationships, they're not, in a way, protecting their eyes, for example. So the way we treat people is also another way to see how much somebody's worth is. The third is, how does a person deal with his enemies? These are three dimensions if you want to analyze someone's life. You look at these three aspects. We talk about Imam Hassan alayhi salam, the first aspect. How was he with his relationship with God? Shahid Mutaharis mentions, a great teacher that they actually assassinated. He says that if you take one aspect from Imam Ali alayhi salam's life, one part, and you take away from his life, you would take away all the value of Imam Ali. What do you think it is that if you take away from Imam Ali, that value that Imam Ali has is all gone, basically? He says that connection to God. What makes Imam Ali is that connection to God. Every kamal, and he has the best of kamal, best of fada'il. No companion, even Ahmad ibn Hanbal mentions that no companion has the fada'il of Ali ibn Abi Talib, right? Higher than this, in Sunni narrations, a person comes and says, who is the best of the companions? And they mention names. And he says, but in this list, I didn't hear the name of Ali ibn Abi Talib. And then he says, well, you asked about the companions. You didn't ask about the nafs, the soul of the Prophet. It's in a different category. You mentioned companions, I told you companions. You didn't ask for nafs. It's in a Sunni source. So we see that the Fada'il of Imam Ali, how great it is. His connection to Allah, in that ma'iyyat, you can say, with Allah, that he is with Allah wherever he is, and he is attaining all the perfect traits of Allah. That's what makes Imam Ali Imam Ali. And that is what makes Imam Hassan Imam Hassan. That this connection, that sometimes we look at religion as just a bunch of do's and don'ts, but in reality that religion is doing tarbiyat of you, is actually better than for your soul than going to the gym, for example. It's just constantly taking you towards God, taking you towards perfection, and you don't realize it. How many here have actually benefited every year with Islam and became more religious? Not spiritual, religious. And you see, the more that you reach towards taqwa and piety, the better of a person you become. Some people ask me this question, what can I do not to be angry? I say, don't ask me this question because I'm Syed, I get angry. Don't ask me, especially on Wednesdays. I don't know if they have this in the community. They say Wednesdays is when Sayyids lose it. Is it? It's not Wednesday night, is it? Okay. But anyways, how can I not lose it? I say, think of God. Do God's remembrance. Be spiritual. Think of yourself when you're in, for example, a spiritual environment, how peaceful you were. Somebody can step on your foot in the shrine of Imam Hussein, you don't care. Because you're connected to God, you're having the time of your life. But then when you get deprived and you separate yourself from actual life itself, from hayat itself, you get agitated, you get frustrated, you feel bad. When you get lazy, you don't connect, you don't feel like prayer, and the person steps on your foot, maybe you want to smack them, for example. So this connection that we have to God is the root of everything good in us, of all of kulla khair. And it repels all of shar. And that's why we have these high expectations from the believers, that after you have believed, that actually this first part, which is relationship with God, should cause a good relationship with people. Because we say that they're actually not two separate entities. If a person really loves God, he goes and completes himself so much that he becomes what we say, wanting khair for everyone. Just how God wants rahmah and mercy and good for everyone, that person lives their life, and I've seen people like this. Day and night, they're just looking, how can I serve someone? How can I be kind to someone? One of our scholars, Marajah, they asked him, what would you do if you only had 30 minutes to live? What would we do? Me, I have a lot of sins, so I have a lot of things to ask for forgiveness. Which mujtahid said this? I would go out, he lived in Najaf. He said, I'll go outside of my house, wait there. And Najaf is a city where many people walk, tourists walk. If you did this probably in Pleasanton, nobody would walk, so this doesn't really apply to you right now. But people would walk and say, I would sit outside of my house and see and wait to see if anyone needed help, I would help them. That's what I would do the last 30 minutes of my life. A scholar, a mujtahid. Sit there and see what the Zawar of Imam Ali alayhi salam needed help. Because what? Irham turham. Be merciful and Allah will have mercy upon you. So we see that the most important part of our completion, our life, is that connection to God. And that connection to God causes us to be the best individuals. Everyone loves them. Everyone loved the Prophet of Islam, his akhlaq that he had. Everyone loved Imam Ali, except for obviously the enemies. Imam Hassan alayhi salam, when we talk about prayer, his relationship with God, we see that actually there are times when we ask ourselves, do I focus in prayer? I have trouble focusing in prayer. I cannot connect to God. I'm distracted, right? I want to show you in one of the hadith in detail how Imam Hassan alayhi salam was before he even reached prayer. Before he even reached prayer and wudu. How did he make ablution? This is the way he was connected. This is why today, 1400 years pass, and you're still remembering Imam Hassan and still crying for Imam Hassan alayhi salam. You know, on the day, the tears, eyes will cry on the day of judgment, except those eyes that cried for Imam Hassan alayhi salam. The tradition has this. مناقب آل أبي طالب أن الحسن بن علي عليه السلام كان إذا توضأ ارتعدت مفاصله. When he came to make wudu, his joints would shake even before he's in prayer. He's getting wudu, he's already shaking. وَاصْفَرَّ لَوْنُهُ. His face would become yellow. Is he in prayer yet? No. He's getting ready for prayer. He's just getting ready for prayer, and he's shaking, and he's yellow colored. فَقِيلَ لَهُ فِي ذَلِكَ. And they asked him, these are believers at his time. They prayed and Imam Hassan prayed. But they were so great, they would confuse people. What's going on? You're shaking, you're turning yellow. فَقَالَ حَقٌّ عَلَى كُلَّ مَنْ وَقَفَ بَيْنَ يَدَيْ رَبِّ الْعَرْشِ أَنْ يَصْفَرَّ لَوْنُهُ وَتَرْتَعِدَ مَفَاصِلُهُ. It's the haqq, it's what is deserved, that every person that is going to be speaking to God, that he should shake and he should become yellow. He's showing that this is how we should be. Not Imam. He didn't say this is how I am. I mean Imam. He mentioned this is how everyone should be. And that's one of the beauties of Islam. And a lot of times you look at other religions and you see they're most religious people, they become so arrogant. But in Islam, our beautiful religion is always showing us an entire level, an entire other dimension, that when you compare yourself to that other reality, you see it's nothing. I don't have anything. God, what is this? My wudu doesn't really count, because Imam Hassan is saying this is how it should be. Does anybody right now, when they get wudu, shake? And if the water's, at an appropriate temperature, do they shake? Do they turn yellow? So we see that from this, that relationship that Imam Hassan alayhi salam had was that he prepared that meeting with God. And salat is nothing but, in the tradition from Imam, is nothing but ziyaratullah. You do ziyarat of Imams. Do you want to do ziyarat of Allah? It's salat. You go and visit Allah. In reality, this is what it is. You're getting ready to meet your Lord and speak to Him in the best way. I always tell people, we have, mashallah, a lot of engineers, designers, architects. If you ask them to design, right now you go to Silicon Valley, design for me the best act of worship. Design for me. They take the heads, the most brightest of people. Can they ever design something as beautiful as salat? No, they cannot. Salat itself, we said, how do you know someone's a prophet? How do you know someone's an imam? The message. When you think about salat and what religion, some religions, they say, don't bow down, don't prostrate to God, that's too low. But in Islam, we have this act of prayer that is nothing but mannerisms. Adab, that's what salat is, adab. Think of it. Sometimes you pray so much, you're used to it. But look, watch someone pray. Watch someone get wudu. Watch the call to prayer. Watch that congregation. Watch that recitation of Quran, which is a miracle. Every salat is a miracle because in it is Quran. And then look at the bowing. Look at the prostrations. Look how beautiful. And if you want to ever imagine, how could I be the most humble towards God? You say, subhanAllah, this salat itself is a miracle. And alhamdulillah, I live in America. I live in California, but somehow Allah opened my heart up to Islam and wants me to talk to Him. Someone asked me once, he says, how can I focus in prayer? I said to him, do you think that this prayer is from you or is from God? The fact that you're coming to pray. If it's just from you, then you have committed shirk and polytheism. In the major part, you can say, or in the reality, it is nothing but Allah allowing you to talk to Him and bringing you forward to pray to Him and talk to Him in the best manner. So I told him, every time you pray, and I tell myself this, the first thing you should do in your mind is say 1,000 shukrs, 1,000 shukr, that Allah, who am I? In this, community that nobody is remembering you, every day it's getting worse. That you have selected me to worship you. And you have allowed me to pray to you. Who am I? Do I deserve this prayer? You have called upon me to talk to me and hear my words. So, you see that the first step that Imam Hassan alayhi salam has is how religious he was. Al-Amali is a book from Shaykh al-Saduq, one of our main authors of hadith, Shaykh al-Saduq. Amali comes from Imla. Imla means this. Back then, the scholars would recite hadith, and right then, the students would do Imla and write it down. Because the Imams of Ahlul Bayt would always say, Qayyidul ilm, tie down knowledge. And if you look at our narrations compared to Sunni narrations, our narrations are transmitted by writing more than just memorization. And they would say, record these hadith. So Amali is when a teacher like Shaykh al-Saduq would have students, and he would say, Imla, I will teach you this hadith. And he would say it in a way that they would exactly write the hadith exactly how it is. In Amali, Shaykh al-Saduq taught this hadith. أن الحسن ibn علي ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, let's give a salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
So the narration actually قال الصادق عليه السلام حدثني أبي. So it's Imam Baqir عليه السلام and أبيه, from his father Imam Zain al-Abidin. أن الحسن بن علي ابن أبي طالب عليه السلام كان أعبد الناس في زمانه وأزهدهم وأفضلهم. That Imam Hassan عليه السلام used to be the best servant of Allah in his time period, and he disdained the most from the world. He was a zahid. وأفضلهم was the best person of his time. وَكَانَ إِذَا حَجَّ حَجَّ مَاشِيًا. And when he would perform the Hajj, he would walk. He would walk to perform Hajj. He wouldn't ride an animal, he would watch. وَرُبَّمَا مَشَى حَافِيًا. What does حَافِيًا mean? Barefooted. Sometimes he would walk to Mecca, say from Medina to Mecca, it's a long distance, hundreds of kilometers, and sometimes barefooted, Imam Hassan. وَكَانَ إِذَا ذَكَرَ الْمَوْتِ بَكَى. And when he would think of death, he would cry. Who is crying? Imam Hassan. How many sins has he done? 0. He's infallible. But he cries for death. Dear brother, dear sister, if Imam Hassan a.s. cries for death, should I cry for death? Should I be worried about death? Should this not cause me to move and to think that every second is passing by, I'm getting closer to my death? وَإِذَا ذَكَرَ الْقَبْرَ بَكَى. He had khawf of Allah when he thought of the grave. And possible loneliness in the grave when they dig a ditch for us and they place us in this dark, deep grave. And all your friends will come to the funeral, inshallah. And if they're not busy or they're not at work or something, they'll come to the grave. And then they'll say, okay, time to go, lunch is being served, and everyone rushes to have lunch. And that's it. That's you and the grave. You, but one friend remains, and the hadith says, and those are your good actions. Because friends come, they're good. But they come to the grave, they can't really help you then. But your amal salih will be your best friend then. Your good deeds will be your best friend. وَإِذَا ذَكَرَ الْبَعْثِ بَكَى. And then when he remembers resurrection, and that this Israfil comes and blows on a trumpet twice. Once everyone's dead. You know, Israfil is possibly the most powerful angel that exists. And some say he's even more powerful than Israel because he blows the trumpet and Israel also dies as well. And he is, when the traditions say he comes to this world, he has a magnificent presence. He's huge. So one of the largest, best angels, Israfil blows, and everyone is alive again. And Ba'ath starts, the day of judgment starts, with 50 stations, for example. Some of the traditions have that, or sayings, is that each station can last 1,000 years. Day of judgment, 50,000 years. Some, inshallah, faster, some. A day that the hadith mentions, describes it as a plain, a desert. Very hot. People are thirsty, on the day of resurrection. And there will be shade for some. And do you know what shade is? When you have done sadaqah. That will become shade for you on the day of resurrection. And they say that why? Some of the scholars explain, because you have provided shade for someone else in this world. Allah provides you shade on the day of resurrection. Very difficult time. Some, they ask everything for them. Some will go by quickly, inshallah. Inshallah will be of those that will be quickly. But to think of these things, when he thinks of death, when he thinks of Ba'ath, when we're sure that we are going to be resurrected one day, and they're going to ask us and hand in front of us our book of actions. And not only when they say read it, it's not reading, our scholars say. The actions are going to be presented in front of us again. You're going to re-perform those actions in front of others. He would cry. وَإِذَا ذَكَرَ الْمَمَرَّ عَلَى الصِّرَاطِ بَكَى. And when he thinks of passing on the Sirat, one of the other manazil al-akhirah, one of the other stations of the hereafter, he would cry. So Imam alayhi salam thought of Allah, Imam thought of the day of judgment, thought of death, and that is why we remember him today. Let's talk about how Imam Hassan alayhi salam, because we're running out of time, was with the people. Imam Hassan alayhi salam was very compassionate. We come from the Kareem and generous of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. We see Al-Nihaya, Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya is a Sunni source, Sunni history book. He says that once he was sitting in a garden, once he saw a slave was sitting on a garden and was sharing his food. At that time, food was generally scarce. It wasn't as abundant as today. I want you to know, when you go to Costco, for example, or you see, one thing, they sell you a truckload, basically, or pallet of things. You didn't have as much abundance. So food was scarce, basically. And a slave doesn't have much, right? A slave doesn't have much. So a slave that doesn't have much is sharing his meal, his food, with a dog. Sometimes we say dogs are najas, dogs bite, get away, sometimes we abuse them. But this person was actually nice, was sharing his meal with a dog. Imam Hassan alayhi salam approaches him and sees this person and asks him, why are you doing this, basically? And he says, قال الغلام أني أستحي منه أن آكل ولا أطعم. I have haya. I am ashamed that I eat this food in front of a hungry dog, for example, in front of this dog, and he watches me and I don't give him food. Hassan alayhi salam was very impressed by a person that doesn't have much, possibly starving, but shares his food with a dog. So therefore he comes, and this is our Imam. This is the person that tonight you're remembering. Remember, when you're at the majlis of Ahlul Bayt, they're very generous. Right now, make your intentions right now. Imam Hassan alayhi salam, I have people that are sick, help my spirituality, everything you want in this world. Right now, get it from Imam Hassan. He's very generous. He's generous to that person that fed a dog. Imagine the Shia of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, what he'll do for them. So he goes and he comes back to this person. Don't leave your spot until I come back. Imam Hassan alayhi salam comes back with a few things that he did for him. One, he purchased that land. He purchases, first of all, the slave. He purchases him and sets him free. Irham turham. You're nice to this dog. I'm going to be compassionate. I'm the Imam from Allah. I will show you God's mercy. You are free now. Two, this land that this happened, this garden this happened, because when a slave is freed, he needs obviously capital. If he's not just going to be free just to be free, he's not going to have anything to eat. So he gives him this garden at the same time. And therefore, you see that Imam Hassan alayhi salam is impressed and respects acts of kindness, even to animals. We see in other sources that Imam Hassan alayhi salam, when it came to people sitting with the poor, sometimes he would sit with the poor and he would eat with them. وَقَدْ وَضَعُوا, you see, for example, the table spread was spread and he was eating bread. People would gather. وَجَعَلَ يَأْكُلُ مَعَهُمْ حَتَّى اكْتَفَوْا وَزَادُوا عَلَى حَالِهِ بِبَرَكَتِهِ. And he ate with them until they're filled with the poor people. The last I want to talk to you about is how was Imam Hassan alayhi salam with his enemies. If you look at the Battle of Jamal, for example, Shaykh Mufid has a nice book about the Battle of Jamal. You see that one of the champions of this battle was Imam Hassan alayhi salam. He was actually, at that time, Muhammad Hanafiya was a great person. Some would say nobody is better than Muhammad Hanafiya. Imam Ali alayhi salam sends Muhammad Hanafiya to battle. Muhammad Hanafiya, because at this time it was very challenging, he comes back unsuccessful. Then the hadith of the story says he sends Hassan ibn Ali alayhi salam, and he comes back victorious at that battle in the Battle of Jamal. And he mentions this beautiful thing about him, wondering why Muhammad Hanafiya, which is his son, was not successful. Imam Hassan alayhi salam was successful. He says that Muhammad Hanafiya is my son, but Hassan ibn Ali is the son of Rasulullah. He's the son of the Messenger of Allah. So say salat ala Muhammad wa ali.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So you see that he was very courageous. So if you see him have peace with Muawiyah, he was forced to have this peace, in a way to protect the honor of the Imam. 70 times it says that they tried to terror him, to try to assassinate him, terrorize him. 80, 70 times. One time they stabbed him, and he had to go to the city of Madain. I don't know here, has anyone seen the movie Mukhtar Nameh? You see the beginning, Iranians made the movie, so they show actually, it's a part of history, that Imam Hassan seeks refuge in Madain, because that's where, and I'm telling you this is so you can watch the movie again if you want, it started to show that the Iranians loved Ahlul Bayt so much that they were protection for Ahlul Bayt, that when he goes and he gets stabbed, he comes to Madain, because there's a lot of loyal Shia there, because that's where Salman al-Farsi used to be the governor. And a lot of the Iranians were in Madain. So he goes to Madain for months. They would take his prayer rug and pull it from him. So now, what is he going to do? One of his generals, you see, with 12,000 soldiers, Ubaydullah ibn Abbas, family members, one of his family members, Muawiyah buys him with a lump sum of money, and 12,000 soldiers sell themselves to Sham. So what is the Imam Hassan alayhi salam going to do? He was forced to have this peace treaty. He was wise. And this is the third part when you want to analyze someone's life. How do they deal with difficult things? How do they deal with their enemies? If someone is so hot-headed and says, look, Muawiyah, I hate you, you had war with my father, I don't really care about Islam, what happens to Islam and Muslimin, I'm just going to fight you until I die. Would that have been better? And with that army that Imam Hassan alayhi salam maybe would have been taken captive even, for example? Imagine if Muawiyah would then free Imam Hassan, free him and say just how the Prophet freed Abu Sufyan and he was one of the Tulaqa, that now I freed, for example, Imam Hassan. Or was it better to have this peace treaty? And therefore, protecting his right, protecting the dignity of the family of the Prophet, forced, to accept this. So you see that he was very wise. The last thing that we're going to talk about is what can we learn from Imam Hassan? I'm going to end with this hadith. The narration says this: عجب لمن يتفكر في مأكوله كيف لا يتفكر في معقوله. I am surprised when a person contemplates about what they eat, how they don't contemplate over what is in their heart. Ma'qula, some say it means heart, not actually aql. I am amazed. We live in a time period where we're always searching for organic food, not to have, say, contaminants, poison in it to harm us. We're always looking for, healthy things that don't bother our stomach, which is good, it's not bad. But compare this, that we're always careful about what we eat, what we like, but we're not careful about what enters our hearts. How does something enter my heart? My eyes, my ears, what I act. Whenever you perform something, it goes to the heart. We're so careful about what we eat, but we're not careful about what affects my stomach, so my heart. فَيُجَنِّبُ بَطْنَهُ مَا يُؤْذِي وَيُودِعُ صَدْرَهُ مَا يُرْضِي. He protects his stomach from what bothers it, what's harmful. But he opens his heart to what destroys it. Today we live in a time period where a lot of ihtiyat and precaution needs to be taken. We have opened our heart and we have allowed everything in it. We don't care what we see, what we say, how we offend people, how we live life. All of this affects my heart. What am I exposed to? A person came to one of our maraja, Ayatollah Abdul Karim Ha'iri. I don't know if anybody heard of the muassis of the Hawza Almiya of Qom, who started the Hawza Almiya of Qom was Ayatollah Abdul Karim Ha'iri. A person came to him, he would answer people's questions depending on their profession. He was a carpenter. He asked him, give me advice. And he says, you're a carpenter? Carpenters, what do? They deal with carpet, right? No. Testing you. They deal with wood. Wood. Yes, wood. So he says, build a window, build a door on your heart. Don't allow anyone but Allah in it. Build a door around your heart. And don't allow anyone else but Allah. So this is the way that if you want to be successful, you have your physical body, which needs to be protected, very good. It actually affects your emotions, affects your health, affects your spirituality. Yes, very good. But more important than that is that spirit, that heart, that is going to be everlasting. And then when Allah has created this, and says those that reach Allah, meet Him with qalb as-salim, with an intact heart, they will be the ones that will be successful. You can damage, allow your heart to, whatever happens, full of arrows from sin, full of different haram things that we did. Or you can have a heart that's protected, and you're always doing precaution in the way you're always taking care of it, so you don't run into haram. You don't put yourself in a situation that you run into haram. So this last advice from Imam Hassan ﷺ is the advice that protect yourselves. Protect that part of you that is going to be everlasting. The body will eventually decay. You can put on all that, anti-aging cream as much as you want. But at the end it decays. When someone is old, it looks old. It doesn't look like they're 16, 18. I'm sorry to give you the bad news. But that spirit doesn't age. That spirit is our, you can say genus. One of our philosophers says if you define insan, mankind, he is al-hay muta'alli. He is the life, he is living, and he is muta'alli. Means that his differentia is that he has godliness. He's alive, meaning man, once he's created, he never has death. There's a transfer to different stages of life. There's no more death for us. Even in the Day of Judgment, the kafirin want to die. They want to be annihilated in heaven, but there's no death for them. There's no more death for us in reality. There's no annihilation. But that other part of us is that ta'alluq. So the spirit needs that connection to God, the ta'alluq. The only way we can protect it is by protecting ourselves. What we listen to, is it haram music or not? This day and age, you cannot, some people, they can't even drive without music. They have to listen to music. They say, I fall asleep. You go to some communities, day and night neighbors, all the time music. It's addicted to music. Haram music, haram things to say, backbiting, lying, 50 different sins from the tongue, thinking before we say something. Protecting ourselves, then Allah inshallah will give us a qalb as-salim, an intact heart, and then inshallah we will reach Allah, will reach life how was meant for us to be. If we can dim the lights and talk about some of the calamity of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Hopefully, when we approach Imam Hassan alayhi salam, we look at the traditions that say that the angels in the seven heavens cry for Imam Hassan alayhi salam, as everything, even birds in the sky and the fish in the sea, cry for him. Whoever cries for Imam Hassan, the day that people will be blind, they will see in the day that everyone else is blind. Ya Abul Hassan, Ya Hassan ibn Ali, Ayyuha al-Mushtaba, Ay Madlum Imam. When you think of Imam Hassan, you think of oppression. You think of what happened to him. Yabna Rasulullah, Ya Hujjatallahi ala khalqa, Ya Sayyidina wa Maulana, Inna tawajjahna wastashfa'na. We come to you, Imam Hassan, you have honor. You're the Kareem of Ahlul Bayt. These dear brothers and sisters have many things to do dua for. Many things we don't even know how to do dua. We're forgetting right now. Answer all of our du'as. Give us all of the needs that we have. Inna tawajjahna wastashfa'na wa tawassalna bika ila Allah. وَقَدَّمْنَاكَ بَيْنَ يَدَيْ حَاجَاتِنَا. Repeat with me. يَا وَجِيهًا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ اشْفَعْ لَنَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. يَا وَجِيهًا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ اشْفَعْ لَنَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. يَا وَجِيهًا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ اشْفَعْ لَنَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. Imam Hassan alayhi salam was poisoned by the most close person to him, by his wife, Ja'da. She gets a promise from Muawiyah that if you poison him, I'll give you my son Yazid and you will become basically a princess. So she becomes fooled and gives such a treacherous poison. Imam Hassan alayhi salam was worried about his army. He would wear armor in front of his own army. Imagine that. He would wear armor in front of his own army. He was worried about them, but it was actually his wife that came and gave poison to him. She never reached that position because when someone does something bad in this world, they don't attain those things. So Muawiyah then later on tricked her and told her, why would I give my son Yazid to you when you killed your previous husband? How can I trust you with my son? Imagine you're in Medina. Imagine that Imam Hassan alayhi salam is twisting and twirling. Some say when a person, especially the amount of poison they would give Ahlul Bayt, it's like being bit by a snake. That a person twists and twirls until they give life. Imagine right now that Imam Hussein alayhi salam is next to his dear brother Imam Hassan. Imagine that Lady Zainab is next to Imam Hassan while he is being poisoned. And Kulthum and Abbas are all around each other. At this time, the poison is so bad that Imam Hassan alayhi salam, they say, begins to vomit. Some are saying that maybe this is something good. Maybe the poison is now going to be to come out of the system. But this poison has already been digested. It's already in the system. And maybe Imam Hassan now is bringing out parts of his own body from vomit. Some say that here his sister comes and quickly he covers his lips that are bloody, so that Lady Zainab does not see her brother in this way with blood on his lips. But Imam Hassan, soon Lady Zainab will see the head of her beloved brother Imam Hussein on the spear. Who will be there to cover the eyes of Lady Zainab? Who will be there to cover such a scene from Lady Zainab? They come and bring a bowl to Imam Hassan, and he brings the poison, he brings his own blood. But we say, La yawm ki yawmika ya Aba Abdullah. Today, during the martyrdom of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, they brought a bowl. But soon they will bring another bowl. They'll be bringing a copper bowl in Kufa. They're bringing a golden bowl in Damascus, in Sham. But what is in this bowl? The beloved head of Abi Abdullah, the beloved head of Imam Hussein. Soon in this bowl there will be the lips, the same lips that Rasulullah kissed, and that Yazid will be playing with khayzaran, some translated as a bamboo stick, will be playing on the lips that was doing the dhikr and remembrance of Allah. That soon Imam Hussein alayhi salam, his body, the chest that held the secrets of Allah's knowledge and ma'rifatullah, soon the chest of Imam Hussein alayhi salam will be under horses. Soon this heart that he was so compassionate in the breast of Imam Hussein that had so much love will be pierced by the arrow, and Imam Hussein alayhi salam will have to take this arrow and pull it from behind him. Imam Hussein, how Shaheed Muhammad Baqir Assad says, is kal Islam kal kul, is as if huwa Imam Hussein ibn Ali huwa al Islam kal kul. He is all of Islam, the embodiment of Islam. The chest of Imam Hussein is the place of the ma'rifat of Allah. The lips of Imam Hussein are the places of remembrance and dhikr of Allah. The forehead of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is the place of prostration to Allah. Inna lillah wa inna alayhi raji'un. May Allah's curse be upon the evildoers. Do we have matam tonight? I want to recite matam al Hussein alayhi salam. So we're going to go to the order of majlis. Let's make dua. May Allah inshallah accept our majlis of remembrance of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. May Allah give us a ziyarat of Medina inshallah. May Allah give shafa'at of his grandfather Rasulullah inshallah to all of us. May Allah give his shafa'at of his own mother Sayyidah Fatima inshallah to us. May Allah cure all of those that are sick. I know a mu'min right now that's in the hospital. May Allah give him inshallah very fast and complete relief inshallah. May Allah help the oppressed. May Allah give food to those that need it. May Allah help all the Muslims, everyone that needs help, especially our brothers in Morocco and Libya with the disasters that they face. May Allah give us knowledge inshallah. May Allah give us an intact heart, the qalb as-salim, and inshallah salvation from the day of judgment. This today was the day of Friday. May Allah make us of the companions of the Imam of the age and expedite his return with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala